Hi everybody, I just thought I'd do something new on the channel, and obviously CrossFit Games is on over the next few days, and I thought I'd give you a quick overview of all the day's happenings that have taken place that day based on a fan's perspective, and just saves you having to go around all the assorted YouTube channels, Instagram, Morning Chalk and all those sort of things to find out when you can just come straight here and I can tell you all about it. If you're not a subscriber, what's wrong with you? Go down below and subscribe. If you're a subscriber, then please like the video. And leave a comment down below, especially if you know any news or events that are taking place at the CrossFit Games that I don't mention here, or things that I'll be able to mention in a future video. Okay, let's start at the top. Event 1. So event 1 was a bike ride. Well, it was a bike ride interspersed with some gymnastics. So they all started in the arena, got up on the rig and did 75 toes to bar. After the toes to bar, they get on a bike, run out of the arena, pushing the bike. Once they get outside into a tarmac road area, they then got on the bikes and did a 5-mile cycle ride. Returned back to the arena. Once I got back to the arena, back onto the rig, do another 75, chest to bars this time, back on the bike, 5-mile loop again, back into the arena, and a quick sprint finish. From a fan's perspective, few issues here. Not very good footage, to be honest. Obviously in the arena, perfect. You can see what's going on. You get an idea of who's in the front, who's behind, and etc. in the midfield. Once they got on the bikes, the footage only seemed to cover the lead 3 or 4 or 5 in a pack. Everyone else, you hadn't got a clue what was going on. You never saw them. There was no footage. There was no overhead drone shots or anything like that. All you had was the lead pack, and so it wasn't very good from a fan's perspective to actually get the excitement to feel who's in the front and who wasn't. The sort of tactics that played out was the person who went out hard on the toes to bar got off the rig first, got on the bike, got outside before all of the chaos and the bottleneck actually happened, with people all sitting out and trying to get on the bikes at the same time. One of the female athletes, Emma O'Connell, managed to fall off her bike on the way through doing this stage. She was unhurt and carried on regardless. As you would have thought, Tia won the first toes to bar. She got out first, got on a bike, but actually on the bike ride she was overtaken by Laura Horvath when they returned to the arena. In the arena, however, Laura Horvath fell right off the pace. Chest to bars weren't a friend of hers at all. Tia and Hayley went out first and second. During the first or second lap, I think it was, of the 5-mile ride, Hayley overtook Tia, got to the stadium first, but only just beat her on a leg race just to get over to the end. I think what was happening was Tia was just keeping a watching brief on her, keeping within a certain pace of her, and then when she thought she might be able to overtake her on the last bit, but Hayley's got the legs to be able to power through and manage to win the event for the first time. On the men's side, bit of a different story. Who else would go out first and hot but Noah Olsen? So he won the toes to bar, got on the bike first with Krennikov quite close behind him, but there was a small pack, and I think it was Dukic, Koski, who else was there? Dukic, Koski, Medeiros and Vellner were in a small pack, and basically they overhauled Noah Olsen, who fell right back. Krennikov joined that little pack, and they all carried around the first 5-mile ride to get back into the arena. After the chest to bars, Koski came off the bars first, got on his bike, got out in front of everybody else. He seemed to have it in the bag. He was being nice and tactical. He was pacing it well. He was joining other small teams and drafting off them for a bit. And at the very last bit before they came back into the arena, he unusually hadn't been looking back behind him. He seemed to sort of slow down towards the very end, didn't race into the arena with his bike, just sort of jogged in gently, and as it was round a bend he couldn't actually see who was behind him, and what was happening, unbeknownst to him, was Ricky Garrard had put his foot down massively, caught up and overhauled him, and basically because of the layout of the arena, Koski's bike had to be taken to sort of almost the far side of the arena, whereas Ricky Garrard had only got to get to the near side of the arena. And what happened was, during that stage there, Ricky managed to get his bike binned off quicker than Koski. He started his run. He was sort of like, I don't know, about 3 or 4 metres in front of Koski before he'd even realised. And so Ricky Garrard took the win with Koski second. However, mass confusion ensued because actually just before this, 2 athletes had already come into the arena, Luka Jukic and Spencer Panchik. It turns out what had actually happened was they'd only done 4 laps instead of 5. So they had actually done the full 1-mile cycle ride. There were actually a couple of athletes that had the same sort of issue. I think in the female side of life, Daniel Brandon had also done the same thing. She come in 1 lap early, and I think Choi, I think her name is, the female athlete on the women's side, she did an extra lap. So instead of just doing 5 laps, she did 6. What CrossFit did to try and resolve that was they took, I think, the slowest time for the men and added that on to their time, for their finishing time, and then rearranged the leaderboard accordingly. And for the female athlete who did 6 laps instead of 5, they took time off, so they just basically deducted the length of time it took her to do that lap. For a change, Patrick Vellner didn't have any issues in the very first event. So conversely, he wasn't right at the back of the crowd this time. He wasn't in 40th position or 35th. He didn't do well, but he only came 20th. So he didn't have to dig himself out of that massive hole that he always puts himself into every year. According to CrossFit, the athletes themselves have been briefed to count their own laps and bring themselves in when they've done it. I can tell you from experience, trying to count laps when you're really tired and fatigued is something that can be quite difficult sometimes. And surely in this day and age, we should be able to have some sort of technology nowadays that could track the athletes, and I don't know, an indicator would flash up to tell them it was time to come in, or a judge would get some sort of alert to tell them to direct them into the arena, rather than relying on the athletes themselves, because obviously that didn't work very well. Obviously, if you've ever done a high rocks event, one of the main issues that always floats around Facebook groups is how do you manage to count how many laps you've got to do on the run, because there's quite a lot of running and you don't want to do too many laps or too little laps because you get penalised, and it's quite a big penalty of about 4 or 5 minutes. So there was a meme floating around on the high rocks group, which I'll show you in a minute, just taking the mickey out of this. Event 2 was supposed to take place but didn't, and that's been postponed and rescheduled to today. And that's because there was a huge storm over the top of Madison with lightning, and you wouldn't want to really be standing up holding a big piece of metal as a lightning conductor over your head in a thunderstorm. Okay, individual event 3 next, and that was called the Individual Skill Speed Medley. Bit of a mouthful, and quite a lot of movements and unusual movements which were really causing issues for our CrossFit Games athletes. So I'm going to read from a piece of paper here because it's quite complicated. So round 1. So if you're a male, you did 3 pegboard ascents, just normal pegboard ascents as you'd normally do with your legs. Females did 2. Then once you've done that, you did 75, and the important word here is unbroken single unders. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute. You then went into 10 unbroken again, single leg squats, so basically a pistol squat on your left leg without putting your foot down, so your foot couldn't touch the floor at all during this time. Once you did those 10, you then started your 10 on your right leg and did the same thing again, sorry. The problem is obviously they're unbroken, so if you just touched the floor or you couldn't quite do anything right and you actually had to stop for some reason, you had to start again. Once you did your pistol squat, you then progressed through and did a handstand walk. So there was a handstand walk section with an up and down ramp over a yellow line and then a sprint to the finish. That was just round 1 though. On to round 2. Round 2 was 2 or 1 if you're a female, strict pegboard ascents. And by strict that meant no legs could be used. So basically just using your arms and shoulders to pull yourself up. Again, 50 unbroken double unders this time, not single unders. Again, 10 unbroken pistol squats for your left, pistol squats for your right. And then you have to do a handstand again. So you kick up to a handstand, step over the line with your hands, and then have to do a pirouette, so a 360, and then up the ramp, down the ramp, and the sprint to the finish again. That was round 2. So after round 2, there were cuts. Not cuts as in they kicked you off the competition, end your CrossFit Games, but a cut for that event. Round 3 was 1 strict pegboard ascent this time, 25 double unders, crossovers. So basically you would have to do a double under and then cross over your hands afterwards. Caused loads of issues for athletes. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. Then you did the same again, 10 unbroken single leg squats, 10 unbroken single leg squats for the right leg. Oh, I forgot to mention the 25 double under crossovers didn't have to be unbroken. There was no chance that was going to happen, so that could be just done in singles or whatever you could do. Finally, if you manage to get through all that, you then start on a handstand walk over parallel bars. Basically, you started off in a sort of sitting position, lifted yourself off the ground, and then inverted yourself upwards pushing backwards up into the air till you're in a handstand position on the parallel bars. Then you walk across the parallel bars on your hands, and then you're finished. Okay, so from a fan's perspective, it was quite exciting, but very gimmicky. So it was quite funny to see the athletes all trying to do single unders. That was quite entertaining. Must be horrendous for the athletes. I think one of them, Tudor Magda, couldn't do single unders, or couldn't do them unbroken, and so basically ended up being capped and didn't get off the single unders section. Quite a few athletes were having issues with the single unders, to be fair. Obviously they train double unders all the time, so it's going to be causing them issues. Only one athlete on the male side managed to sort of mostly crack that technique, and that guy was Nick Matthew, who was managing to put together not just singles but consecutive 2 or 3 reps at a time at one point. But no one else was really cracking it. I think Justin Medeiros started to get it, but he was just doing singles, and because of that, Nick Matthews streaked to a finish and actually won the event as his first event win. And this is the guy that, I think he was a backfill position guy, one of the guys who maybe got popped for PEDs, got pulled out of the event, and then he got backfilled in, and so he wasn't even aware he was going in until weeks before the event. So I don't think he was even training properly for it at one point. There was also an issue on the strict pegboards. A couple of the athletes couldn't do them at all. I think it was Ellie Turner, maybe. I think she was the one who was on the female side who was having problems. Hopefully it was Ellie Turner. And Noah Olsen definitely couldn't do it. I think he's such a strong hench guy. You'd have thought it'd be easy for him to do that, but he kept fidgeting and not getting his peg in the hole properly. I think he fell off once, and then I think eventually his arms and shoulders gave way, and he knew he was going to be able to do it, and he just lost his rag, got the pegs and threw them in disgust at himself, I think. What actually happened is, I think it was split into 3 rounds, sort of a standard round, a semi-final and a final. I think the top 20 went through to the second round, and only the top 5 went through to the final round. The shocker for everyone, I think, concerned here was that Tia didn't get through until the semi-final. And so I think she came out 21st, 22nd or something like that. So she got cut. And so I had to stand on the sidelines and was not being consoled, but I think a shocked Brooke Wells was talking to her about it and pointing out the fact that she wasn't going to be going through to the semi-finals. So on the men's side, on the final, there was actually Velna, Medeiros, Ricky Garrard and Guy. Medeiros looked to have lost the event initially in the very first pegboard ascent, or the only pegboard ascent. As he was climbing up, he fumbled, dropped the peg, and the peg bounced behind the pegboard, and he had to drop off, run around the back, get the peg and get back up again. As I said earlier, Nick Matthew was the only person who managed to suss out the technique required to do the crossover double unders. Because of that, and it was quite a tight time cap as well, I think he was the only person to actually get across the line and not be capped on the men's side. As I said, surprisingly, Tia wasn't in the final. Hopefully she's going to come back fighting. She's not a sort of person who's going to take this too badly, I think. I just think these events just didn't play to her strengths, and she's going to come back proper fighting for the next few days, and will have to be in the same sort of position as Matt Fraser was in the 2019 games, I think it was, with Noah Olsen, where he was having to watch somebody else. In this case for Tia, it was Emma Lawson, wearing the white jersey and having to chase them down all the time, but also at the same point hoping that not only was she doing well herself, that the people in front at the top of the game are actually not doing so well, so that the points difference works out for her in her favour. But I think she'll be okay. On the women's side, the 5 who made it through to the final were Daniel Brandon, Mal O'Brien, Emma Lawson, Filiano and Rebecca Facilier. None of them really got the technique perfect. I think a couple of them managed to get singles and they were working their way through quite slowly. So it was a different ball game for the women. On the women's side, Daniel Brandon, she was the one who actually won the event, but she didn't actually finish it. She was capped like everyone else in the event. Right, so on to event number 4. This one was called Elizabeth Elevated, and basically this is an upsell of the original Elizabeth benchmark workout. This time it was 21:15.999 of squat cleans at 135 or 95 pounds, depending if you're male or female, or for us people here in Europe, 61 or 43 kilograms, followed by a parallel bar traverse and dips afterwards. I think that was the problem there. There's a lot of those athletes are good at dips, but the actual traverse to get from one side of the parallel bars to the next was draining them so much that by the time I got to the dips, it was really hurting them to be able to do those. Harder for Tia in this event again was she had to watch Emma Lawson coming out in the leader's white jersey and not her. Unfortunately, the pressure on the rookie to the games for Emma Lawson, a bit too much for her this time I think, and she only came 14th in the event. Tia started off well on the event, but I think her technique on the traverses, she was actually doing quite long sort of arm pulls over the traverse bars, and I think that was taking a lot out of her by the time she actually got to the dips. And maybe she's quite a bigger, heavier athlete, so some of the smaller athletes were much better than her. But the actual person who she was pushing all the way through to the very end was Ariel Lowen, and Ariel Lowen actually left her behind in the last 1 or 2 rounds and actually pushed right ahead, and Tia faded quite quickly and I dropped quite back down in the field about 3 or 4 places after that. And Cara Saunders came in second, and so both of them CrossFit mums, so proving that you can go away and have a baby if you're a CrossFit lady out there who's thinking about having children and still come back and be stronger than Tia Claire Toomey. On the men's event, Roman Krennikov pushed ahead quite early on. I think he's got such a good engine, I thought maybe he would be able to carry on that throughout. But what actually happened was Pat Vellner was just behind him and sort of about halfway through the event got level pegging with him. And then basically Vellner just seemed to push slowly more and more and more. He was calling for feedback off the crowd. Not like Pat Vellner. Pat Vellner's quite understated usually, but he was really pushing for some feedback and getting the crowd behind him. He won the event with quite a big gap in the end as well. And makes you think this change in personality might be basically it's his comeback against Ricky Garrard, who kept him off the podium in the games when Ricky got disqualified, but actually Pat Vellner never actually got his podium celebration. I'm not going to cover teams much here. I did watch some of the team competitions, but I just didn't have time basically. There's only so many hours in the day. And one thing that worthy of note though was instead of the standard operation that's been going ahead for 7, 8, 9 years now, where CrossFit Mayhem Freedom turn up, win every event and walk away with the win every time. In the first event, CrossFit Oslo Navy Blue beat them. It wasn't a massive win, but it was a win, and meant that going to the next event, they were wearing the white leaders jerseys and not CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. However, on the second event, matters reasserted themselves, normality resumed, Mayhem Freedom won the event, and now moving into the next day, have got the leaders jersey. Unfortunately, the long-awaited CrossFit Reykjavik versus CrossFit Mayhem Freedom competitiveness didn't really turn up. I think basically what had happened is all the news outlets and online chatter say that basically Annie's team turned up from Reykjavik, came to the athlete registration, and up until the very, very last minute weren't sure whether they're going to be able to register with their normal team because Lauren Fisher had injured her shoulder or something like that. So some of the movements were really painful for her, and they weren't even sure whether they'd be able to compete with her or not. And at one point they were thinking about bringing in Katrin Davidstotter as well, instead of Lauren Fisher as a replacement. But eventually they signed in under their name of CrossFit Reykjavik using Lauren Fisher. In the first event, the Biker Bob event, I don't think it really caused Lauren Fisher too many issues. In the second event, it definitely did. And unfortunately, it caused them so many issues. I think in the end, they finished 30th in the pegs and bars event, which has really hurt their chances now moving forward, unfortunately. So the long anticipated rivalry between those two teams didn't really come together. But I think CrossFit Navy Oslo Blue might be their replacement instead. Okay, taking a look at the leaderboard. So the first 20 on the men's side of life, Ricky Garrard finished the day in the lead. He's 15 points ahead of Medeiros, and Vellner's only another 18 points back in third. So even though that's only third place so far for Vellner, that must be a win-win, and he must be going away buzzing about that, to be honest, compared to his previous few years where he's always dug himself, been a massive hole after the first event or two, and then had to spend the rest of the CrossFit Games days trying to fight his way back to second. So that's quite ominous because for the other competitors that he's not starting in such a bad position this year. On the bottom 20 of the leaderboard for the men, Didn't expect to see Jason Hopper down there in 32nd. He's been getting coaching from the GOAT himself, Fraser, but maybe these events just didn't suit his skill sets, perhaps. So looking at the top 20 on the females leaderboard, well, it's been predicted for the last year, since the last CrossFit Games, Mal O'Brien was the heir apparent to Tia. And, well, currently that's true. She's got a 27-point increment at the top of the board over Emma Lawson, another very young CrossFit Games athlete who's a rookie to the Games. The two youngsters themselves are both ahead of CrossFit mum Ariel Lowen, who's got 237 points, who's only 6 points behind Emma Lawson. Hayley Adams started off the day well with an event win, but then got capped and came 18th in Elizabeth Elevated. Wasn't going to be her strongest event anyway, leading to a final 5th position at the end of the day. Lots of hype ahead of the Games for Brandon. She had obviously a few issues with her coach and changed coach and programming and things like that just weeks ahead of the Games, but doesn't seem to have affected her that bad. She's doing quite well at the moment, and she's had an initial event placing of 27th, which was really bad for her. But then she got a 6th and a 1st afterwards, so she's made up some good ground again. The bottom 20 on the women's leaderboard, Brooke Wells on the cusp here, but bearing in mind she had massive elbow injury last year, which was only a year ago, and done all of the rest and recuperation and rehab, and lots of events have actually been quite elbow heavy, so probably haven't really suited her confidence levels maybe. So maybe she's going to do better the next day or two. And Gabby Magala's down in 25th. I thought she was going to do much better this year so far, but again, maybe just didn't suit her. And of course, I have to talk about our own Lucy Campbell, who's in 27th at the moment. So she's doing not bad for her first season. On the team side, Mayhem Freedom at the top, obviously, but only 15 points back at CrossFit Oslo Navy Blue. So, you know, there's some competition there for him. So let's see what the days ahead lead to. CrossFit Reykjavik fell right back due to the issues on the second event and only finished the day in 17th. And that's probably not the start Annie would have wanted at all. So some other takeaways from the leaderboard and what's been going ahead for the last few days. Saxon Panchak, that's an unusual one. Won the Open, did really well at his semi-final, and I thought he was going to be really good here, but at the moment he's only in 31st position. So hopefully he's going to be pushing ahead in the days to come. Definitely been more of a spread of winners in the last few events. I think we're so used to seeing Fraser or Tia going to events, really win all the events back to back, wearing the white jersey all the time. But it's quite strange to actually see what we're seeing at the moment, which is a different person, a different athlete winning every event, which is really good. But it does make it more awkward for the guys to float to the top. It's good to see a prevalence of younger athletes coming through to the fore as well. They're getting the timing, obviously. They're much more mobile. They've been training for 4 or 5 years perhaps already. And we've already got Mal O'Brien at the top and Emma Lawson right behind her. Are we seeing a change in the guard? Are we seeing the young generation now taking over from the old guard previously? Finally, Emily Rolfe. I think she finished 14th in the bike event. She's actually medically withdrawn and actually has already been into hospital and had an emergency operation. Basically, she was doing the toes to bar as part of event 1, came off the toes to bar, her left arm felt strange. I think she'd had some sort of minor bicep injury beforehand, a tear or something like that. Assumed it was something like that, carried on with the ride, finished the event in 14th, went straight over to see the doctor on completion of the event. I think he checked for a pulse, couldn't find a pulse. She was obviously alive, so there was a major issue there. They rushed her into hospital and had to do an operation and take out some blood clots in her left arm. So quite a major issue. She obviously won't be carrying on for the rest of the event, so good luck to her. Hope she recuperates all right. She's already posted on Instagram about it, saying she's okay now, but it was a life-threatening issue, and luckily the CrossFit medical team sorted it out and got her all back on track again. Okay, that's everything from me. I'll see you tomorrow with the update of day 2.